Hello, my lovely, and welcome to the ADHD Entrepreneur. My name is Carrie, and I'm your host and the chief weirdo of Carrie Out Loud. I'm so glad that you found the podcast. And as a woman with ADHD who mentors women with ADHD, I am here to help you harness the traits you contend with and show you how to work with them and not against them. So that way your business will grow and thrive with a lot less stress and overwhelm, and you can have a lot more fun. So if that's your jam, you're in the right place. Let's get started. See you on the inside. Hello, my lovely, and welcome back to the ADHD Entrepreneur. I'm really fucking excited right now because last week I told a story about my cousin and Shia LaBeouf. And my cousin agreed to come on because she also has ADHD. And what's interesting is we're both women in business, but she's more of a creative. So she is a stand-up comedian. And to me, that is just terrifying. Like, you have to have big lady balls to be able to go up in front of people and do what she does. And so I wanted to bring her on, kind of talk a little bit about ADHD, about what she does, about what it's like being in front of people and doing what she does. So everybody say hi to my cousin Alexis.
Hello. Carry out loud gang.
That's
Do you have
that.
names for your fans?
The lady squad.
The Lady Squad. I like
Mm-hmm.
it.
Or the spicy brains, whatever
Oh,
they
I like
prefer.
spicy brain.
That's pretty much like the branding of all of my stuff, like my mastermind and some of my other things. I call it the spicy brain. So I just kind of run with that because we're a bunch of neuro spicy women.
Yes.
We're definitely spicy. So, anyway, I've known you since before you were born, and
That's true.
when you were younger, you were very dramatic and you were
Still am.
very still and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I used to crack up. One Christmas, you opened a present, and after every present, you pretended to faint because it was the best present you ever got until the next present. So
I feel like that reinforced really bad behavior my whole
I
life.
think I think it did, and I wouldn't be surprised if you did that again.
Yeah, next
You know.
Christmas.
So I don't know if this is a question I've even ever asked you, which makes me feel like shit, but what made you decide you wanted to do stand-up comedy?
Um, it was, and this is very corny. I feel like I didn't decide I wanted to do it. I feel like it chose me, and it was like,
Hmm.
this is your calling, and
Oh.
now you have to do it. And I remember being mad. Like, I did my first show, and I was like, damn it, I have to do this for the rest of my life. Of course, it's the most terrifying thing.
What makes it
So,
so terrifying?
you're essentially reading these thoughts that you wouldn't normally tell people
Mhm.
on stage in hopes that they feel the same way.
That is a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, but I think a lot of stuff led me to it. Like, I think early on, I always knew I was going to be an entertainer. I always knew it had to do with comedy. I
Mhm.
just never actually thought that stand-up comedy was a job
Mhm.
until like 12 years ago.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I remember you were young one time and you wanted to go to this very specific restaurant that had a white picket fence. Do you remember what that was called?
The Ivy.
The Ivy. So we went to the Ivy because you wanted to see anyone famous,
Yeah.
anyone. And we ended up seeing Ringo
Ringo.
Starr. My mom had a cow. And then I think we saw Brooke Burke, I think her name was. She was on
Yes.
like yeah. And you're like, ah, it was the best. Because
Yeah.
you're like, I'm at
Yeah.
the Ivy. Yeah. That was like a
So
birthday present.
I remember our drinks, like our Cokes we had were like $8. And that was like what we talked about all day. And they like keep refilling them. We're like, no.
You're like, that's $74 for the Coke. Uh,
Yes. That's
and it
so
doesn't
funny.
even have like, it wasn't even the old Coke where it had Coke in it, you know?
I know. That would have been nice. I was like 10.
Yeah, you were way too young for that stuff. Now it's okay because you're in your 20s. Wink. So what made you actually get up on that stage the first time?
I
Like,
think
what
it
made you go,
was
"Hey, I'm gonna give this a shot," like, even in the first place, before you even got on a stage? What was the thought process?
I think it was I think it'd be fun to try. I did improv before, thinking
Ah,
it was gonna exercise that muscle and I'd be
mhm,
good. I did like theater and acting and stuff.
mhm,
But I think when I got up on stage, it was because my dad, your uncle, um,
mhm.
he was like, "Hey, this is a workshop class that you should take from this lady who's like a feminist,
Yeah.
and I'm going to sign you up for it." So it was a gift. So, I
Oh,
kind of felt not obligated, but I was like, I'll give this a try. And when I got up on there, I remember being like, darn, I thought I was funny. Like, I thought I was a funny person. And then I'm writing these jokes and I'm like, what the heck? But I'm looking at my old jokes and they were pretty good for being new because
yeah.
I was really talking about things that were going on.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
remember one specific joke you told that, like, made me almost pee my pants. You were talking about healthcare and how,
yeah.
people just, like, go into a back alley and they open it like, $10 copay. Do you want a $10 copay? $20 copay? That joke, like, I still remember that joke to this day, and that was years ago. Like, you
Yeah,
had
I
a
love that
5-minute
joke.
set, maybe 5-minute set.
Yeah, it was 5 minutes and
Yeah.
my legs went numb and I thought I was gonna faint. But you just go back and you do it. I think it's like a roller coaster type of thing. You get that adrenaline and you're like, okay, I could do this.
And then you get off the stage and you're like, why do I do this? And then you're about to
Yeah,
go on stage and you're like, why do I do this? And then you get on the stage and like, oh, I know why I do this. And then it's
yeah,
that cycle, I'm guessing.
exactly. I freak out. It's part of my what's it called? Like routine.
Your
I
ritual, your
Yeah,
pre
my
show
ritual.
ritual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my pre-show
Yeah.
ritual is I get extreme stage fright, and then as soon as I open my mouth and talk on the mic, it all goes away every time.
Do you feel like it's almost out of body once you get up there and you start moving your mouth?
Yeah, all the time,
That's so
especially
crazy.
good and bad.
Yeah.
Because good because you just feel like you're with your friends telling jokes and they're loving it, and
Right.
then it could get so repetitive that like you do too many shows with the same
Mm-hmm.
jokes and you feel
Mm-hmm.
like autopilot. Where I'm like
Mm.
I feel like I'm watching myself tell these
Mm-hmm.
jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because you've told them over and over again.
yeah, and that's always the sign to write. I'm constantly writing new material, but that's always a sign to like now you really got to write new material because you don't. It's not as enjoyable.
You're like, I don't even like this shit anymore.
No, yeah, I get like sick of them. I'm like, ugh, here goes this one.
So, like, what's your big goal for this? What's your like what's one of your holy grails? Because I know with doing what you do, there's gotta be more, there's probably more than one. So, like, what is something that feels like it would be an ultimate for you?
I think getting like any sort of recognition on like a streaming service, like
Mhm.
having my set on that, or like having acting jobs come from this.
Mhm.
That would be great. I kind of want to do like Donald Glover, like hit him hard with comedy, acting, music. Like that would be a dream. So he's actually like someone I look up to so much because of all that. But I stopped kind of thinking of okay, what do I want? Like what's the dream job? And more of like I think if I work really hard at this, I'll be surprised of what comes, and
Mhm.
that will be great. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and I
What's your
have very
longest
little say.
what
Huh?
was that?
I said
What was
sometimes
it?
I have very little say in what my career can bring to me until I hit a certain point. I feel like,
Right. Right.
yeah,
And when was the first time you stood on a stage?
doing comedy
Mhm.
professionally, not or I guess professionally,
Mhm.
probably in 2014.
Oh my gosh. Now, didn't you do something like a groundlings workshop? Is that the workshop you're talking about that
Yeah,
Uncle Don Uncle Don that your dad that's
yeah,
my
no,
uncle that your
I know
dad
it's
gave you?
weird to
Was that
say.
it?
So I'm sure he paid for it, but no, that was something I wanted to do because I thought I'd be good at it. And I was okay. But I remember like you have to get passed to go into different levels.
Mhm.
And I remember my teacher saying, "We can't pass you, but you're really naturally funny." And I
Oh.
was like, okay. And then there was a boy in my class who did stand up comedy. And I'm like,
Oh.
maybe I should try that. And then my dad purchased the class.
Got
It's
it.
Bobby Oliver's comedy
That's
class.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what's it like behind the scenes as a woman comedian? Plus, on top of it, we haven't pulled this up yet, but you also have ADHD. So
Yeah.
that is part of the reason why I brought you on here, since this show is all about ADHD, women in business who have that. What like where are you at right now? How are you feeling right now about what's going on in your career and what's happening?
Yeah, I think like I don't know if it's a side effect of or a symptom of ADHD, but you I try and do everything and I try and do
Mhm.
it so perfectly. And so, sometimes the failures, they hit really hard. And I'm like, am I not putting enough focus on this?
Mm,
So but I don't know if that's ADHD or if that's just like a human feeling to have. But I wouldn't say like my ADHD completely rules my life,
that's good.
but it's definitely something that like you I think about.
Mhm.
And when I have to really focus on like pen to paper, I have to like really use all the tools.
Yeah. What
you know
tools do you use? What kind of tools do you use to help you with that focus? Because
Mhm.
you do have to not only focus, you have to focus on what's funny.
Yeah,
So it's like
and
you have
that
to
doesn't
focus on
come.
creativity. And that's usually something that creativity is just something that we kind of want to flow, as opposed to like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to create something hilarious,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, no, you're so right, because creativity, you can't just be like, I'm going to sit and write these jokes. It's like what I have to do is I have to change it up. How I got one good joke isn't how I'm going to get the next one. I used to only write in my car.
mm,
So dangerous. But all my good jokes would come to me because you're kind of on autopilot. I'm feeling kind of zen in my car. You're
mhm,
singing,
mhm.
the creativity's flowing, so it's easy for it to come.
Yep.
But I would rely so much on that if I couldn't write at home, I'd be like, I can't. So anyway, long story short, I try and switch it up. I try and write in the car, also at home. I write at like my day job now.
Yes.
But you have to write a lot of bad stuff. I don't write jokes. I just kind of write thoughts and things that
Mhm.
happened. And they're so silly and stupid. I'd be like, I saw a squirrel. And then the next day, all of the
I
juices,
saw a
which,
squirrel. That's so appropriate. Squirrel.
right? Squirrel.
So
And then the next day, you'll just have this, the creative juices will just start flowing because you wrote down these little things. It just kind of gets it pumping.
yeah. No, that I actually can very much relate to. It's funny because even though we do very different things, the process is pretty similar. Like some of my best effing ideas come in the car
Yes.
or in the bathtub, because those are
Yes.
the two times when everything else is shut out and it's the quietest it gets. And
Yeah.
then all these ideas hit and you're like, shit,
I
I have
know.
nothing to write. I have to write this down, but like voice notes and things like that. But what tools besides, what tools for that focus have you learned? I know that now. Do you take medication sometimes? What
Yeah,
other
just as
tools?
needed.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, like I read that, because like a stimulant to help with ADHD, it pumps up the dopamine in your and it everything in the prefrontal cortex. You're now able to focus. Like that's the
Correct.
area.
Hmm.
But I also heard that a lot of creativity doesn't come from when you're so zoned in. I don't think I've
Hmm.
ever written a joke on Adderall,
Right.
but it's probably helped me down the road focus more on like writing
Right.
and all that stuff. But
And your
I don't,
job,
yeah.
your day
And
job too.
yeah, to help feed myself to keep pursuing comedy.
Yes. Yes. What's the longest set you've done so far?
26 minutes.
Not 25, not 27, but
Yeah,
26.
yeah, exactly. 26 minutes.
Um, what is one of your favorite jokes that you have right now?
Um,
Yeah, I'm
Probably it's
totally putting
always
you on the spot, by the way.
no, I don't mind. It's
Yeah.
probably about this person I'm dating. It's the new jokes always have the most energy,
Hmm.
and I'm so excited to tell them because they're new and I'm working on them still. So probably like these new jokes about dating an Egyptian.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that at the concert. We went to a
Yeah.
concert together recently, and that was
Yeah.
definitely a topic of discussion, along with thank you very much and putting our arm in the air and and then contributing that to our ADHD somehow. Like we need to
Yeah.
integrate that into life. But yeah, that's really funny.
Yeah.
So, um, what is your favorite part of being in our family?
You know, let me just say, because you get in a family and you're like, gosh, my family's crazy. And then you see these other families, you're like, I bet they're kind of normal. I remember I dated a man who was very wealthy, as I
Yes,
think you remember. And
I
I
do.
remember being around his
Bajillionaire. Yeah.
family. Yeah, being around his family, and they were very kind to me. I have nothing but the best things to say. But also remember being like, the dynamic is so weird because of all the money that
Mm.
it makes our family look very normal and human, and I miss them. Just like everyone
Yeah.
has quirks. Your mom says to know me is to love me, and I feel like that's with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she does say that. That's
Yeah,
true.
but we have so much, we don't have big blowouts, right? Like we don't have these
No,
moments where we're like, I'm not talking to Carrie.
no, I don't think in our entire family history we've had anything like that that I
Yeah,
can like from
it's
anybody.
actually very, very like strange because I always hear about people not talking to each other.
Yeah, especially since the last few years. Like people have difference of opinions and, families have been like broken because of the last handful of years. And I'm just like, yeah, well, everyone in our family's just kind of like, well, this is what I think. And the other person's like, okay,
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think because everyone is smart, to be honest. Like
That,
everyone is
that is
educated
true.
enough to this is how you treat somebody, especially
Yes.
someone blood related.
Yeah. No, we definitely like it's so funny because I was talking to my mom one time and I felt really bad because I was like, I'm the least educated person in this family. Your dad was an attorney for 4 years. Uncle Bob was a freaking literally a rocket scientist. My mom has her, master's in public health. And, I have my AA in paralegal studies. And I'm like, woohoo, I'm like the least educated. And then my mom looked at me and blew my fucking mind. And she said, yeah, but you're the bravest. And I was all,
Yeah,
what? Like, I did not see that coming from a mile away because my ADHD constantly lied to me before I knew I had it. Like the chatter in our head that
yeah,
that tells us you're lazy. Why can't you do XYZ? Why can't you do the laundry? Why can't you do the dishes? What and we are sure that that's just a personality flaw, that those are personality traits. And then you find out you have ADHD and you're like, or not. That's a neurological disorder. Okay, this is a whole different
Do
world,
you do you think that your life would have been different if you got diagnosed earlier?
That's one of my biggest.
Not that anything's wrong with your life now, but I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
curious.
no. That's actually one of my biggest sadnesses is that I
Mm,
didn't know sooner, and I was misdiagnosed for so long by a doctor I trusted. I still
mm,
go to him, but my trust with him is I trusted doctors because they've saved my life so many times, and I've had doctors because of medical conditions I had when I was younger who've like literally saved my life. And so I very much have been like, they take care of you. And then when I realized there's such a disparity in
yeah,
how women are treated in the medical community, how blown off I felt, and how for 12 years how did he not see it? How did he not
mhm.
know that? And so, yes, I think my life would have been very different. But would I go back and change it? Probably not, because then I wouldn't have Ryan. my
Yeah.
son. I wouldn't have
Podcast
him,
business.
like I wouldn't have had that. But ADHD has an effect on relationships. ADHD has an effect on friendships. ADHD has an effect on a lot of different areas of your life, depending how deeply you have it. Some people don't have the symptoms as deeply as others, but
Mhm.
I know for a fact, like, I hated parts of myself. Like, I could not accept me for years. And then finally, when the doctor who diagnosed me said, ta-da, all of a sudden it was like, oh,
Yeah. It
I'm,
all clicks.
I'm, I'm a, I'm, I like me because this wasn't my fault.
Hmm.
But I was really pissed at my doctor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now doing what I do and hearing the same story come into my DMs over and over and over again of misdiagnosis and trying the wrong meds and then finally getting treated for the right thing and then feeling well and feeling capable, and how it is so underdiagnosed in women, so underrecognized in women, and so made into a mental health issue that we end up with mental health issues because of not being diagnosed at all.
Yeah.
ADHD, anxiety, and depression are side effects of untreated and undiagnosed ADHD.
Yeah. And you're lucky too that you weren't, and maybe you were doing other things to kind of what's the word?
Self
Like
like
regulate.
regulate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're lucky you didn't fall into like drugs and
Ugh.
drinking and you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
probably other things that you did, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like catastrophic.
No, I have had therapists who literally were like, the fact that you were not ever on a pole, the fact that you never did drugs, the fact I had a therapist straight up tell me these are not my words, okay? These are the words of the therapist John. He's like, the fact that you aren't an alcoholic, the fact that you aren't a drug addict, the fact you aren't a sex addict, the fact that you aren't
Yeah.
any of these things, and that you somehow managed with everything that's happened to you to be a fairly straight and narrow human being for the
Yeah.
most part. Um, because I did utilize cannabis for a while because it was like the only thing that would shut my brain the hell up at
Hmm.
night to sleep, because sleep is a necessity. Like, if I don't
Sure.
sleep,
Yeah, isn't it
mm,
crazy? The older you get too, if you don't get that sleep, it just
yes. I'm
and
like, I'm like, people go out places at 9. I'm in my bed at 9. Like,
yeah,
what's wrong? This is the time I used to leave my house. What the
yeah, I know.
hell? So yeah, it definitely changes. But no, sleep, when I realized how much of a factor sleep was for me, that was a big shift for me because I finally figured out ways to sleep. But when I went on a stimulant, they're like, you can have no THC. You can have nothing in your system except for what we've prescribed to you, which I have one thing they've prescribed to me that would show up on this test. And so I had to wait like 2 months before I got my meds. And I was angry about that. I was just freaking angry that
Yeah.
you have all, I don't know if you went through this. Did you have a lot of emotions around getting diagnosed? Like, why is it so much later in my life? Like, why didn't anyone figure this out sooner? Or were you just accepting of what happened?
Yeah, I think that like because when I was younger, I'd see the boys, their symptoms were a lot different. Most of them,
Very.
it
Yeah.
was they're off, they're running around the classroom, can't the teacher can't get a hold of them. So
Mm-hmm.
no one thought that ADHD was, the symptoms were any different. So no one ever pulled my mom aside like, hey, we noticed she can't concentrate
Mm-hmm.
or she's not picking this up. They just assume that something was wrong with me. Like I just wasn't getting it, you
Yes.
know? But it, and I get angry at that, but also like, I don't know what it might have helped me, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wouldn't have turned out who I am, like you were saying, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like especially if I had to keep up with that, I'd probably have to wing myself off of it at a certain age. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how
Yeah.
my body would be with that
Right.
in my system for 20 years.
Right.
So, I'm glad I have it now because now I can focus on all the really important stuff.
Yes. And then when you don't need to take it, you don't have to, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah. Yeah. What made you get tested?
I decided to take some online courses during COVID, like
Mm-hmm.
free ones,
Mm-hmm.
because Harvard and Yale were offering some of their courses, and they were so interesting. Yale did a happiness course
Oh,
that
that's
literally
cool.
changed my life,
That's
right?
amazing.
And it was the science of happiness, so it
That's
was backed
cool.
by data.
That's amazing. There is a lot of data about why people are why some people are happy and why some are not. Yeah.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
remember, and it's a class. Like you take tests and you do quizzes. And that one was fun and interesting. But I remember being like, oh my gosh, I can't sit still. It was almost funny. And then it clicked. I know exactly where I was. I was at my kitchen table and it clicked. I remember looking off into the distance and going, this is why I dropped out of college.
Oh
Like
my
this is the
gosh.
moment because I couldn't do it. It was too hard. It was
Yeah.
too hard to go back and be like, pay attention, pay attention.
Yeah.
And I felt
I remember
stupid and
that.
it was a struggle. So I was like, I got to get out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's all freaking internalized. We internalize it. We don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
There's three kinds, and boys tend to have the hyperactive and girls tend to have the inattentive. And then there's
Mhm.
combined for overachievers like myself, where you have it all. And I think that are you the inattentive type, which is where the daydreaming and the kind of like lack of focus and things you're talking about? Because you don't seem
Yeah.
very hyperactive to me.
I'm hyperactive in my mannerisms. So
Got it.
I fidget like crazy,
So you do
touch my
stimming.
head. Yes. But
Yeah.
no, I'm not like, I can't sit still. Like I'll get up and I'll go and do stuff and I'll sit down and I'll get up, but I'm not like so much like where people are like, whoa,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it's more of like, playing with my fingers or all that stuff.
You mean this? What I'm doing right
This?
now, picking
I
up my
can see it.
finger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
I'll be
literally,
like,
yeah.
or I'll like
Or
touch, on stage, I'll do it too. I'll be like, or like, I'm like, what am I touching? Nothing.
yeah. Do you ever touch your fingertips together to feel the ridges? That was
No,
something
but I will now.
I was like, I was like, that's a thing. Who knew?
Yeah.
But I've done that. That and satin, anything
Oh,
satin. Like I want
yes.
to just touch it. And like I I am a 50-year-old woman who sleeps with a satin pillowcase like it's a whoopee.
Yeah. I get
Remember,
it.
so we have these little habits and we just don't think anything of them. And what's funny is the more I learn about ADHD, the more I'm like, oh, that's a thing. Okay. Like
Yeah.
justice sensitivity, we get
Yeah.
incensed, and we cannot let it go when we see like something that is an injustice. It's why I stopped
Mhm.
watching the news. And
Good call.
the Hubs is the one who kind of gives me anything major.
Yeah. He's like,
you know
we're at war right now, Carrie.
Yeah, but basically, unless it relates directly to where we are, like I
Yeah.
have to really be careful what I consume because I will hear something about somebody in a whole other country that something happened to a child, and I won't be able to stop thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you telling me about that. But it's good to know that I think identifying it is huge, right? That you do it and then
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and
label it.
I think because of how much news I consumed during a certain point over certain years, that
Hmm.
I was like, if I keep doing this, it's going to be even more detrimental to my well-being, period.
Yeah.
So I took all the news off my apps. I took all the notifications off my phone. I took all of that stuff away. Now I get notifications from the Hubs texting me or an article, and I'll like read the headline and be like, I probably don't want to read that right now.
Yeah. Good for you.
or I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll read this. But
Yeah.
like that's really where I get my information because I can't do the commentary and the ruffling up of the feathers and all of this garbage. I want facts. Like,
Yeah.
just give me the facts. I don't care who wore what. Like, I just want to know what the facts are, And so, do you have any like particular things that you found out were ADHD that surprised you, or did you kind of know what your
I
things
think
were?
I think the most surprising thing was how many people on both sides of my family have it and how genetics work. Because, and I feel bad, like some people weren't, like my mom was never diagnosed.
Right.
Um, she was also like addicted to diet pills, so she was self-medicating herself, but
Mm-hmm.
abusing it. So she
Right.
never actually got to see like a healthy way to fix it, or
Yeah.
give it a go. But that and it's yeah I think I noticed more of like, oh, my mom used to do that. Like when you say certain things, you're
Mm.
like, oh, I just sound like my mom.
Oh yeah.
Now that I'm
Mm-hmm.
older, I'm like, oh, she used to always do that, and she couldn't pay attention, and she still has it. And like she has it bad still, but it's just kind of like her, it doesn't really affect her, you know what I mean? Like it's part of her personality. She doesn't know. She's from a generation that like didn't really know about it.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah, for
really
sure.
got diagnosed. So
Yeah.
she's living her life. But yeah, that's the only part I really think about.
And we're so hyper aware now. It's like we're so aware, and it's like I find myself doing funny things like I'm hyper vigilant, right? So,
Mhm.
like, I'll be at the gym. Like this morning is a perfect example. There was a coach and I had a dumbbell and I had a ball for something we were doing. And I know that he needed both of those things. So he's talking and I'm like putting my dumbbell over there and putting my ball over there. And I'm like, this is not my job. Why am I doing this?
That's a nice thing to do.
Because that's what I know how to be as a helper. Like that's what I've always done because I thought that helping people would get me love, right? And so I thought by being helpful, people would like me. And it's interesting because for a lot of my life, I wanted to be a certain way, but I just couldn't be that way. And it's funny because I've had a handful of people say the same thing. You used to want to be a certain way. Now you just are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's been like the self acceptance,
Yeah.
the acceptance of, oh, all this shit is all related.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always have a say.
Yeah,
I don't
and it's
always have a
also
say.
like you're human and everyone has their things.
Right.
And it's just, how you want to react to them. And
Right.
sometimes, like, who's to say, like, obviously having ADHD could be, really detrimental to your life and create
Mhm.
really hard obstacles. But also, it's like, it's part of you.
Mhm.
And there's probably like a lot of really good things, like you're saying, helping that come from
Mhm.
it. So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily, I wouldn't say, they say like a disease is when it's bad. You could
Right.
have a disease, but it's good. They just don't call it that.
Right.
Like if,
Right.
if you were always happy all the time, they don't have a disease for that because it's nothing
Right.
negative.
Right.
But
Right.
the second it's like you're sad all the time, that's now it's depression. Like now
Right.
I'm gonna diagnose you. So
Right.
I
Right.
think that, yeah, I think, it probably it makes up who you are. It's
Yeah.
part of you. And it looks like you've, honed in on it and you're capitalizing on it.
I'm using it for the greater good, really. And,
Yeah.
it's interesting too is that I used to help because I wanted something back, but not because, how do I explain this? I wasn't doing it to try to get anything. I was doing it because I thought that's how I could be accepted.
Mm.
Now, when I'm helping, it's because I really fucking want to. Like, I really, really want to help because I know what this feels like to go, maybe that's me. And then be like, holy crap, that's totally me. And then
Hmm.
check off all the boxes and then go to the doctor and then be told, yes, you have had this all along. I mean, I told my psychologist a couple things that happened since childhood. He's like, oh, well, if you're talking about the childhood stuff, like he's like, oh yeah, that's totally, part of it is when you talk
Yeah.
about the things as a kid. And like you said, you're like, doo, 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 you just couldn't focus, you couldn't concentrate.
Mhm.
So they look at those things from when you were young and now the things that happen to you now and how our hormones dictate, oh my gosh, our hormones
Yeah.
too. Like some women discover that they have ADHD when they start hitting menopause because like their hormones just flat a whack and they're like, what is wrong with me? Am I getting dementia? And
I
they
bet.
have,
And our environment plays a huge role. Half
yeah.
the time I'm like, is it me or is it everything else? You
Oh,
know?
yeah. Yeah. No, we definitely live in a world that's full of a lot of stimulation, a lot more than when I was younger.
Sure.
But I also think that when you have ADHD, it's like you either are hyper focused or you cannot tune out anything. And it's
Hmm.
like that extreme as opposed to like, okay, I just lose focus sometimes. No, like this is something
Yeah.
that actually causes detriment to your life.
Yeah.
That's what makes it different.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm so glad you came to talk about this with me and to talk
Fabulous. Look
to
how you're
my
so good at this. Look at you.
Thank you. It's only been 60 something episodes now. Can't
Really
even
good.
believe that. It's
Yeah.
wild, but yeah, I know. I love doing this because it's the such a great way to get information to people. It's a great way to get thoughts out
Hmm.
of and to have people come back and go, yeah, I totally relate to that because we
Yeah.
need community. And this is like
Sure.
another way to foster community. I don't know if you saw, I think I mentioned to you blue zones, but they talk about, community being a huge factor in
Oh
longevity of
yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
when you find other people with ADHD who are like, yep, totally get that one, you suddenly don't feel like I'm such a weirdo, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
You
like,
it makes you feel a little less special.
yes. Even though, frankly, like they have a similar story, but our way of storytelling is different. Our way of helping people is different. So that's what does make us unique is that there's literally only one of each of us, you know. But yeah, no, I love being able to do what I do, and I love in the oddest way that this all happened the way it did because I was building something, and then when this happened, I'm like, now what do I do? Like I've been building this thing on anxiety. Now, who
Hmm.
am I? What's going on? Like for 4 months, I was stuck in like, uh, like I was just like felt like I was stuck. And then one day I felt like I just like shot out the other side. And I'm like, and I knew the minute I got ADHD that I was going to be pivoting to help ADHDers, but I just didn't know how to freaking do it. And I was like, yeah, you just do it.
Yeah. And it turned out
That's what you do.
beautiful.
Yeah, it did. And I have some amazing clients, and I'm so lucky to have a brain they can pick because I've learned all of these things. Now I have so much. I mean, I've been in business for myself in some capacity for like 25 years, but specifically with Instagram and all of the things that I've learned there. Now I have so much of that like, I mean, I taught someone what Canva was the other day, and like her mind was blown. She's like, I want to use a logo. I'm like, oh, do you use Canva? She's like, what's that? I'm like,
Love
oh,
Canva.
I'm like, girl, you're going to go down the rabbit hole for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
Good
I
luck.
use it
Peace
for all
be
my
with you.
school stuff.
Yeah. I'm like, peace
Great.
be with you. Peace be with you. Cause you're going to
It's
hyper
fun
focus.
too.
Yes. I love Canva. I'm
Yeah.
going to have a class on Canva actually, where I'm going to teach people how to kind of create like a mini brand so that they don't go down the hole as an ADHDer. Cause you can just sit in Canva all day
Oh
long.
yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
so easy to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Well,
funny because I can't stop fidgeting right now.
trust me, I'm picking on my pants. My foot is bouncing up and down. Like
I'm like,
this, the stimming is real. I'm sweating like like what, because
yeah.
we have no AC because in California they're like it's a condo near the beach. Who needs
Oh
air conditioning?
no. I
We
know.
we only have air conditioning in our
Bastards.
room, because it's a beach town. So they're like, yeah, who needs AC? It was the 70s. No one cared. Climate was
See?
not a
Gosh.
problem.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine. That's hard.
So yeah, I'm gonna go back in there with the dog and the AC. as soon as
I
we
get it.
wrap
I
it up.
appreciate you having me on and
Well,
sweating,
yeah,
doing
no,
the Bikram
I'm
yoga for our podcast.
Bikram podcasting.
Yeah. That's
That's
what you
okay.
should do.
I do Bikram CrossFit, like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
our space there is like 8,000 square feet. And it's like when it's hot, you are just, it's a,
Sure. Yeah.
so I'm used to sweating, I guess. I don't know. Um, but I'm so glad you came on, and
Thank you for
thank you for
having
letting
me.
me share your Shia LaBeouf story last
So
time about,
good. So good. I'm gonna have to take a listen after
oh,
this.
you got to go back and listen.
Yeah, yeah. I
I gave
cannot wait.
you like, I gave it, I gave it what it deserved in the storytelling.
Thank you. It went to the right place.
Yes. I love that you waited to tell me first and in person. That was awesome.
Had
So,
to.
and then let me just say, as the eldest cousin of our section in our family, that I'm so proud of you and how hard you work on your comedy, and that you have not let anything get in your way of that, because that takes tenacity, resilience, that takes guts, and it can get hard, and you still will persevere. And I'm constantly on your Instagram going, oh, she's got another show. Oh, she's got another show. Oh, she's got another show. Like, I just love seeing that stuff in your picture that you have in the gold shirt. Just cracks me up. I'm like, she's like looking into space. I'm like, that's perfect. Of course she's looking into space.
Well, I love that and I appreciate that. That means so much to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Because
does.
that's brave in a way that that's bravery in a way I don't have yet. So maybe one day
Yeah.
I'll have that bravery. But I was like talking in front of people, not just into a microphone. But
So gotta start
all
somewhere.
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for being here. And thanks to everybody for listening. If you're new here, thank you so much for being here. And if you are returning, I really appreciate your time today. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a little coffee chat with, well, it's nighttime. So a little
Well,
cocktail chat with no
yeah.
cocktails. So thanks for coming on, Lala. And
Of
thanks
course.
to everybody for listening. I see you. I love you. I'm rooting for you all always. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.